Alright, last night I was doom scrolling YouTube and I saw a video about this giant gun train thing. So naturally I went down the rabbit hole of, well, really dangerous pew-pews. Boy oh boy, let me tell ya, I found some insanely OP weapons. Starting with the Korean hwacha. The hwacha was Korea's take on traditional archery. Thinking, that's cool, but what if we turned it into something cooler? Why spend time shooting one arrow when you can shoot 200 at the same time? Picture yourself as a simple foot soldier, lined up with your comrades, feeling quite sure about the battle ahead. You have your sword, your armor, and maybe a pretty good plan for the fight. But suddenly you hear a strange whooshing sound. You look up and wow, the air is now filled with 90% flaming rocket-powered arrows. Your life flashes before your eyes. But there's no time to feel sorry because in just a couple of seconds, you and your whole team are about to look like spiky creatures from the past. The inventiveness of the hwacha wasn't only that it shot arrows with gunpowder rockets linked to them, because obviously regular arrows weren't scary enough. Now, instead of just a plain wooden stick coming your way, you had a fiery, loud little missile aimed right at your hopes and dreams. Did the Koreans even try to aim this thing? No way. They simply lit the fuse, aimed it roughly at the enemy, and let randomness take care of everything. When you send out 200 projectiles at the same time, something's sure to land. Maybe it's your peers. It could be a leader. Maybe it's just a poor horse that didn't even agree to this situation. Basically, everyone's having a bad time. And remember, this thing had wheels. This means the Koreans could show up, turn the battlefield into a chaotic mess filled with arrows, and then easily move it somewhere else to do it all over again. Like, oh, you really thought you made it through the first wave? That's sweet. Here, take another one. It was just there to mess up your whole life and ensure your team left with more arrows than people. While other medieval societies were engaged in polite sword fights, Korea took a bold step and created the first medieval rocket launcher. That meant that anyone facing this terrifying device had two options: flee or become an unwilling target. Greek fire. The Byzantines took one look at normal fire and said, yeah, but what if it never went out? This was not your standard, everyday, campfire roasted marshmallow kind of fire. This was a medieval war crime in a bottle. A liquid inferno that stuck to whatever it touched. Ships, people, the ocean itself. And it just kept burning like it had a personal grudge against anything and everything. Imagine you're a soldier on an enemy ship, confidently rowing towards a Byzantine fleet. You're ready for a good old-fashioned naval battle. Then suddenly, a Byzantine warship sprays what looks like demon juice onto your deck. Before you can even ask, what is that? Boom, everything's on fire. Your ship, on fire. Your crew, also on fire. The water you're desperately trying to jump into? Oh, that's on fire too. Welcome to Greek fire, where the only escape route is accepting your new career as a human torch. The exact recipe for this nightmare fuel was so secret, even the people using it didn't fully understand how it worked. Some say it involved naphtha, sulfur, quicklime, or even just magic, because honestly at that point, why not? The Byzantines were so protective of this weapon that they basically locked the formula in a vault and threw away the key. And you know what? Good call. Humanity did not need another round of medieval napalm experiments. Greek fire was the reason that enemy fleets feared Byzantine naval warfare. You could have the biggest, baddest armada in the world, but the moment the Byzantines rolled up with their flamethrower cannons, you were done. And unlike other weapons, which required skill and aim, Greek fire just required a basic understanding of point, shoot, and watch everything scream. The Chinese fire lance. Because using a normal spear just didn't have enough character. Now, the ancient Chinese decided to make things more exciting by adding a tiny volcano to the end of a perfectly good weapon. Why just poke an enemy when you can also set them on fire? Very efficient. Alright, imagine this scenario. You're a regular foot soldier in medieval China, just going about your day, maybe wishing you had made different choices that brought you here, when out of nowhere, the person in front of you pulls out a fire lance. At the beginning, you might say, oh, it's just a spear. Then bam! Your eyebrows are missing, your armor is melting, and there's a nice little bit of shrapnel stuck in the spots you'd rather not talk about. The fire lance may have messed up your day. So it works with tubes full of gunpowder attached to spears, which are designed to shoot out flames, smoke, and metal shrapnel. Because just setting people on fire wasn't exciting enough. Gotta have explosions. The complete mess of it all is something that would make any battlefield leader feel both really proud and a bit scared of their own soldiers. Oh, but this was only the start, my dear viewer. At some point, folks wondered, what if we made it all go boom? Because, obviously, a spear that only shoots fire wasn't good enough. The fire lance eventually turned into real guns, showing that the best way to create new things is to attach explosives to stuff and see what happens. So the next time you imagine medieval battles being just about honor and sword fights, keep in mind there were people out there using flamethrowers on sticks. Definitely not honorable. Mongolian composite bows. Why play nice when you can take down enemies from far away while galloping on a horse? If medieval battles were a video game, the Mongols were the players who discovered the super strong weapon and just kept using it until everyone else got really frustrated and stopped playing. Picture yourself as a struggling foot soldier who just managed to reach the battlefield. You have your sword, your shield, and a little hope that today won't be your final day. Suddenly, from what seems like a different place, an arrow strikes your friend beside you. You look around and there's no one. Where'd the frickin' arrow come from? One more arrow. Still no one around. At last you hear the sound of hooves, but the riders are so distant that you begin to doubt what's real. Congrats, you've just met the Mongols and their special bows, and it's already too late. These bows were not only strong, they were designed to be terrifying. They were made from wood, string, and animal horn, and were smaller than European longbows but had a lot more power. What about the Mongols? Oh, they didn't just use them. They turned the laws of physics into tools for war. They would ride really fast, move their bodies in all sorts of ways, and shoot arrows perfectly, all while their horses were charging around in the battlefield. At the same time, their foes were still trying to understand where the hell the enemy was coming from. And let's remember the Mongols' top battle strat. Always keep moving. Regular armies lined up and walked into battle like proper people. The Mongols? They approached war like a quick drive-by, shooting arrows at enemies before disappearing to the distance like a group from a fast-paced action movie. If you managed to get through the first wave, great job. You've just set yourself up for more challenges ahead. If you've ever wondered how the Mongols created the biggest land empire ever, the answer is pretty obvious. A mix of skilled horse riders, strong bows, and a total lack of concern for their enemies' desire to survive. Sumerian sickle sword. The Sumerians, the first civilization to see a perfectly good, straight sword and think, nah, let's make it curved and scary. Here comes the sickle sword, a charming little weapon from long ago that didn't just slice through people, but really tore them apart. Because, it seems, war wasn't hard enough already. Wait. Subscribe. Anyway, this huge thing wasn't just curved for looks. It was made to grab onto skin, armor, and maybe even your desire to keep living. Imagine lifting your shield, expecting to stop a regular sword hit, when the sickle sword twists around it, pulls it away, and quickly introduces itself to your insides. Defense? Adorable thought. Sadly, the sickle sword was not a fan of fair battles. And the greatest part? This item was really like having two tools in one. Need to slice? No problem. Want to mess with someone and make their day go really badly? Oh, for sure. The Sumerians didn't create war, but they did make it much more brutal than it needed to be. While other groups were gently pushing each other with spears, the Sumerians were using scary farming tools made for serious damage. If you ever go back in time to ancient Mesopotamia and spot someone charging at you with a sickle sword, get ready. Your day's about to take a really bad turn, and you won't last long. Carthaginians' war elephants. The Carthaginians' war elephant showed that sometimes a simple way to win a fight is to send a huge, mad animal at your enemies and just see what happens. While other armies were getting better at using swords, spears, and shields, the Carthaginians saw an elephant and wondered, what if we made this creature even scarier? And so the first battle tank was invented. Only this one didn't run on diesel, but on anger and fear. Imagine you're on the battlefield, feeling sure about your military setup, when all of a sudden the ground begins to shake. You look up and wow, there's a huge, angry elephant in armor running straight towards you. Your leader yells something about staying strong, but really, there isn't any strength left. It's just you, the elephant, and the god you believe in. And honestly, that god is looking at you like, yup, you're on your own, buddy. The amazing thing about war elephants wasn't just how big they were. It was that they didn't just stomp on everything around them. They also had real soldiers sitting on their backs. Indeed, it was as if being run over by an elephant wasn't tough enough. Some guy on top was also throwing spears at you to make it really clear. You're screwed. So what's your best way to protect yourself? A sword? A bow and arrow? Oh yeah, good luck trying to take down a huge killing machine while it flattens your whole army like a stack of pancakes. Let's talk about the mind games involved here. Most people back then probably never had seen an elephant, much less one in armor rushing at them ready for battle. Sure, war elephants had their weaknesses. At times, they felt afraid, they got anxious, and thought, you know what? Let's go back and step on our own team instead. Which, to be honest, made them even more frightening because now everyone was at risk. The enemy in a tough spot. The people using these elephants also messed up. It was a mix of funny and sad moments all at once. In the end, the Carthaginians realized something clear. Why struggle with your own fights when you can let a group of powerful living machines handle it for you? War elephants didn't think about plans, lines, or ways to fight. They wanted total destruction, and if you saw one coming at you, the only real choice left was whether to scream before or after getting squished. The Ottomans. The Ottoman Humbaraki grenade showed that sometimes a simple way to fight is to throw an explosive into a group and wait to see the outcome. While other armies were still trying to understand swords and fancy formations, the Ottomans saw a ceramic pot and thought, how could we improve this? Gunpowder. And just like that, battles in the Middle Ages became much louder, more dangerous, and a lot scarier. Now, if you're thinking about some fancy exact grenade moves, don't. These things weren't about being right. They were all about wild, messy fun. Imagine being a soldier on the wrong side, just standing there trying to seem tough, when out of nowhere a clay pot flies right at you. You might believe it's just a random bit of broken clay. How terrible could it be? Then bang. Great job, you and some of your team now really understand what high-speed shrapnel's all about. These grenades were like old-time surprise boxes, but instead of treats or treasure, they were packed with a one-way pass to the next life. Some had little fuses, others were just tossed and hoped to go off with the hit. Either way, if you saw an Ottoman soldier going for a strange pot, your best choice was to just disappear. And remember, this was many years before we had modern grenades. The Ottomans were throwing tiny bombs at people while many armies were still using sharp sticks. That's like arriving at a bar fight with a grenade while everyone else is still using chairs to hit each other. It wasn't just not right, it was really funny. Unless, of course, you were the one getting hit. Germany, World War II, the Gustav gun. The Gustav gun's like when someone wonders, what if we created a gun so huge it needed its own zip code? And nobody in the German high command thought to say, maybe that's a little too much. This was more than a gun, it was a famous landmark that could shoot big shells that were the size of small houses. It was so big that it had to be placed on a real railway track. Yeah, when your weapon's too large to move without a whole train system, you know you've definitely gone to over-the-top territory. The Gustav gun wasn't made to target soldiers, tanks, or regular bunkers. Nah, this creature was made to destroy whole city blocks in a single blast. If a fortress was unlucky enough to be too close, it wouldn't just get hurt, it wouldn't exist anymore. Vaporized, my guy. Imagine a huge shell weighing 7 tons being shot towards you, moving almost as fast as a sound, and then exploding with such power that the ground seems to think twice about its existence. If you manage to make it through, well done, you might be the luckiest person ever. Or maybe you just didn't know you were gone already. Sure, having a big size brings a lot of tricky problems to deal with. The Gustav gun needed a huge amount of people just to put it together, take care of it, and load it again. It took a lot of people just to get it ready to use, which meant that if the enemy saw you moving this huge thing into place, they had plenty of time to move somewhere else. And let's not forget that even with its huge power, the Gustav gun wasn't really useful. Sure, it could take down a huge bunker from far away, but it was also ridiculously large. And it was slow. But it was also so ridiculously huge and slow that it was like a big please attack me sign. The Allies saw it and thought, oh, wonderful, a railway gun. Let's just destroy the tracks and make sure this thing never goes anywhere. And that's exactly what happened. The Germans put in a lot of time and money to make the most extravagant weapon ever imagined, only for it to get put on hold. Ultimately, the Gustav gun showed what can happen when military engineers have endless money and no limits at all. It was really strong, very wasteful, and in the end, totally not useful. But for a short time in history, Germany had the biggest, loudest, and most overly large gun in the world. France, the guillotine. While other countries were focused on improving guns, cannons, and explosives, the French paused to consider capital punishment and wondered what could make this better. The answer was better productivity and a loyal group of supporters. And so the guillotine was created, a device designed to cut off heads so fast even gravity took notice. Let's be honest, if you saw this thing coming to town, it wasn't for a good time. If this thing was in town, it was a big planned event. People would cheer, boo, and sometimes even knit while watching others lose their heads. The guillotine was the most popular show of the 18th century, and let's be real, the French really liked using it. The Reign of Terror wasn't just a fancy name, it was a government-run, heads-will-roll event that went on for more than a year. Revolutionary leaders became so eager to cut down their enemies that by the end, they even had turned on one another. Picture creating the scariest justice system ever, only to find out, oops, now you're the one in trouble. What's the best part, or the worst part? The guillotine was really a humane invention. At least when you think about the slow, painful ways people were put to death before. No more pain, hassle, or long waits, just a fast, easy cut. Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotin, the person who promoted it, really believed it would make executions kinder and eliminate the problem of torture. In some sense, he had a point. By the 1970s, yes, the 1970s, the French finally stopped using it and the guillotine had seen more action than some armies. If war was measured by how many people were killed, the guillotine could have been the most effective French weapon ever, but it wasn't aimed at enemies, it was directed at French people, usually by other French people. Anyway, if you like this video, you'll like this one even more. Subscribe.